Merry time of day. Since it seemed to me that a fair few community members got enthused about tablet weaving when we made our own cards to make a pride ribbon back in June, I thought maybe we could scale up the difficulty level a little bit. Not too much, still beginner friendly, but we are going to be using the tablet weaving's unique ability to manipulate individual pieces of the warp, because each piece of the warp is connected to a card with 4 holes in it, or 6 or 3, like there are different cards, but we are going to be using square cards today, so 4 holes in this case. Anyway, we are going to be using this book. This is called Appleseas and Foxnoses Finnish Tablet Woven Bands, and it is by Maiko Karisto and Mervi Pasanen. And I really like this book. I recommend this a lot to new weavers who want to have something to get them started, because Mervi and Maiko really thoroughly explain how tablet weaving works in a thorough introduction chapter, as well as explain how their patterns work specifically, because this can change from tablet weaver to tablet weaver depending on how your cards are oriented, so there is room for confusion, but this is very thorough, and I really enjoy that this one is in both Finnish and English at the same time. That might sound like a minor detail, but that means that we get exposed to part of the culture that made this and had this in their vernacular, in their history, and the names are lovingly translated from Finnish, and they have all these playful names, sometimes nature-oriented, sometimes about keys, and it's just a lot of fun. You get an introduction to that in a different way than you would if this book had a English version and a Finnish version, but this one does both at the same time. The pattern I wanted to weave today is called Mehiläisshalkoja, and I probably am not pronouncing that right, but translated, hello madam. No sitting on my book, please. But yes, it is this pattern, gently overseen by our excellent supervisor, and it has 16 cards in total. That's the 16 here, and all 4 cards are threaded as they are in throughout this book. This is not a missing hole technique book. Hello. Sweetie, I'm trying to teach the community some new skills for tablet weaving. Do you mind? Could I have my book back? Madam. Thank you. Much obliged. Yes, as I was trying to show you, it has 16 cards in total, so not an overwhelming amount of cards. And there are 3 sort of blocks where we are going to be turning our cards backwards and forwards. So there's a little bit of individual card turning going on here, but not a whole lot. And one of the things that you can see here, because the grayed out areas are cards go backwards and the white areas are cards go forwards. So this is a pattern that is what we call twist neutral, because it goes equal amounts of times forward as it goes backward. So we don't build up twist in our cards over time, except for the edge cards, which go either only forwards and then only backwards, or vice versa. But I'm also going to show you a little trick that you can do so that you can turn the cards forwards all the time if they are the edge cards, and you will be managing the twist even so. So we are going to need, what is this? There are 12 cards in the middle with 2 of each color, so we're going to need 12 times 2 is 24 of the yellow, and then we have 24 plus the 8 and 8 on either side should make 40 black threads. Excellent. So this is where our starting knots are, you know, those little loopy loops and the ends of our warp. So we're going to go all the way to the other one. this side where there's nothing but yarn going back and forth, no knots. This is going to be the far furthest away, like in words, from our starting point. So the end of the warp, if you will. Just going to shimmy her in there, tie a good knot, and now we also have something to tie to a table leg or such like. And if you have a long warp and your room or whatever else is not big enough to accommodate it, you can make a simple little chain like so. Make sure that it's in the direction of the rest of the warp, the thread you're going to pull. And then you can keep making your little chain, basically just a very like crochet chain stitch, just with your hand. And now you have a shorter warp and a loop. Make sure you keep tabs of which is which. That can just be placed over something and you tension it and then you weave. Now, in order to keep card weaving approachable, we are going to keep using our little food cardboard scrap cardboard tablets. So let's thread. Our first two cards are going to be all black, and then we're going to tie a little knot at the very end. Madam, you don't have to be quite so helpful, just because if you have pulled your cards back in order to get as much warp as possible out of your weaving and dropped all the cards because you forgot to tie knots, you only do that once. And then all 12 pattern cards are going to have 2 yellow and 2 black threads. Now I'm just finding all my A's and making sure that they're aligned here in the, for me, top right corner. A. There. Now everything should be facing in the same direction. And I'm going to show you something else in a moment. If my cards could just behave. This is a large safety needle. I find them in knitting shops where I live. If you don't have this, you can just have a carpeting needle or like a darning needle with a piece of yarn and it'll do the same thing. But now all my cards will stay in the same direction while I comb out the warp as best I can and give us as much space to start with as possible. So I'm gonna, now with this thread, hello Sud, I will tie a knot on my warp where it is most balanced, so that if you don't have a ribbon holder like I do, because card weaving is still a part of garment tradition in Norway, you can take this knot that now has even warp tension on our loom and you can put just your belt in front here of the knot and then you can start there, and as your ribbon gets longer you can just take the belt out of this in between place and you can just tie the ribbon itself to your belt. Your shuttles may vary, but this is one I hand whittled many years ago. It is quite bumpy, but it works just as well. And I made a little hole so that I can just thread our yarn through on one side, tie a little knot, and then we can just thread. I am using the same black yarn that I warped my edge cards with and the black part of the pattern, so it should be pretty low visibility because I'm using the same color as my edge cards. think that'll be enough. All right, I talk about this every time and I'm still gonna talk about it today. Here is yet another ribbon. You can just use like twill tape or something until you have your own set of strong woven ribbons, but I want you to tie it around your hips, especially if you have sensitive back issues or anything like that. If you tie it up here, you are going to be pulling at the small of your back, which can get painful. So I always advise take the big strong hips instead. Looks a bit funky, but it works really well. And so this one is a ribbon holder for when you are weaving. It works like this. We take our ribbon and we place it over the top and put the knot through the bottom. And then this tightens, it lives in the ribbon at your hips. So then we can weave like so, and you can just tighten it as you move. I assume most of you don't have one of these though, so instead we are just going to do a good old tie and retie to the belt. Just gonna go this one through, all the way down to my knot, and then we tie it again. So we are ready. Make sure all our cards are aligned in the right position. Remove our safety latch and grab our shuttle. And the first two repeats are just all the cards forwards. And then you see you get a pick here. And in order to fasten our thread, we're going to pass it back in the opposite direction. So the edged cards are going to go forwards all the time until we can't go anymore. 3 on either side are also going to go up. And then we have 6 here that's going to go back. So 6 cards back. And then 10 cards forwards. Now we collect the pack again, or I suppose I don't have to collect the pack since it's the same pattern next time. Find the shed. And then the same one more time. And when you would like to take a break from this weaving that you are literally strapped to, literally being one of the supporting beams for this warp, I like to do so at the end of each pattern repeat so that I know where I am when I start again. But you just collect your pack, find your darning needle with a thread or your large safety pin, and you just make sure to hit all the cards through one of the holes. Whichever, so long as you remember if it gets messy. And then we can just untie ourselves. And although the warp loses tension, it will be okay when we put it back on because all the threads are connected both at the bottom and at the end. All right, so now that we have been weaving for a bit, I can sort of start feeling, I'm not concerned with the pattern cards at all because they are twist neutral. As I mentioned earlier, the pattern is twist neutral, so there's no buildup of twist as we weave, but these edge cards on either side have only been going forwards, and you might be able to say that they are twisted into twisty strings, one for each card. And the way you can solve this, if you are weaving and you would like to have the twist go the other way, is you can either start turning the edge cards backwards all the time, or if you don't want to remember if you were working edge cards backwards or edge cards forwards the next time you sit down, you can also just flip the cards. And when we flip the cards, what was a forward turn will become a backward turn and vice versa. So the orientation of the edge cards here, if you look really closely, will sort of split from being a V to a fishbone, or the other way around. And you can also see that these cards, if you look really closely, they go from leaning towards the left to leaning towards the right, or vice versa. And when we flip the cards like that, especially on cards that don't have any other colors, it's just a monochrome edge card, you won't really see a big difference. And now we can just continue weaving edge cards forward without having to remember which direction we were going on the last time we were weaving. I find this quite useful, especially for edge cards, because then it's easier to keep going. But yeah, you can choose when you start to feel that the edge cards are getting tighter than the rest of the warp. That's generally when I like to change, or when you just can't really turn your cards anymore because there's too much twist build up. And if you are wondering why I'm sitting upon the floor when there are perfectly good chairs elsewhere in the workroom, all I can say is just that it felt like a floor crawl kind of day. It just do be like that sometimes. And towards the end here, there's always a bit of a back and forth between getting as much as possible out of your warp and the increased fiddliness that it takes to get a clean shed. But I think we could tease a little bit more out of this one. generally I think I say that you lose at least half a meter to a meter of your warp to beginning and ending, but also to the warp shortening because it is like moving up and down as you are weaving, which is common for all weaving, but something to keep in mind. But for a relatively short warp, I say a half a meter to a meter is a good safety margin if you are weaving to a specific length. And you will also notice that as you have less and less left of your warp, you also need to flip your cards or change direction more often because there is just less space for the twist to build up within. All right, let's see. Let us try to finish this now. I was reminded of a great way of doing that, very clean and tidy, from Evie, Jillian Eve, who does a lot of amazing stuff, but she was doing a inkle band for Pride, a lovely rainbow one, and we shall try to do the same. So we have some long lengths of linen here, nice and strong. I hope it's a little bit thin, so I think I'm going to lay it double, but we are going to fold it in half so you have a loop and then pull it through like so. And I'm just going to go forward now because it is being a pain because I went too far, but there you go. And then we pack that in really tightly. Make sure not to mix it up with our extra linen thread. It's nice that they're white and contrasty. There we go. I'm gonna put them alternate. Here is our loop. We are gonna put that in like so. Hello, my love. And one more. Hi. I'm coming to help. I'm just gonna place all of these. I think I made 6 little linen strands because I couldn't find my broken ends. Hello, my love. Are you craving one attention? I hope this thread is not, this is wool, and it's quite soft, so I'm hoping that it will not break when we try to pull it through. So the thinking is that this weaving, just like when we started, we weaved our tail in, this does kind of the same thing, just in the opposite direction. Ooh. Very much helped by my incredible assistant. And then, oh, I had 2 more. Okay, let's see, 2 more. Doing our best not to get them tangled with each other. And the last one. And then one more. Big. Could be a little bit difficult to see, but now I have all these loops hanging out. And I hope my wool thread will survive this. All right, so now we take our thread, we grab the first one, go through the first loop, and we pull our loop out, first one, and make sure this one follows, and then again into the next one. Give it a little leeway so that you can not over tighten your band. It looks like the wool is surviving if I'm just careful. The next one, a little bit more. And there we go. That is our warp Nice and secure and not going anywhere. Why are you trying to eat my enormous safety pin, madam? I don't think you need that much iron in your diet.
So you have the ground word that for bee, mehiläis, mehiläinen, and then you have the word for feet, jalkoja. So in order to make it bee's feet, you end up with mehiläisjalkoja.